At the end of the previous chapter, we looked at options for exporting your audio from Audacity by going to File, Export Audio. And I mentioned that even though you can see an MP3 option here, Audacity can't export MP3s on its own by default. Now, MP3s are still, without question, one of the most common file formats for audio. MP3s produce small file sizes, and they sound really good to most people. So in this movie, I want to take a look at how to set up Audacity so you can generate MP3 versions of your projects. I'll just cancel that, and I'm going to quit Audacity for now. I don't need to save any changes to this file. So first, you'll want to open up your web browser and go to audacityteam.org. And again, just as a reminder, don't browse to sourceforge.net to download anything related to Audacity or any other software. As I mentioned in the video on installing Audacity, SourceForge was caught bundling junkware and other malicious software into their downloads, so steer clear of sourceforge.net and only go to audacityteam.org. Alright, so the MP3 encoder is not part of Audacity, and it can't be distributed with Audacity due to software patents. So we have to follow some links here to get to the site where it's hosted. I find the quickest way is to go to the download page for your operating system. And then here under Optional Downloads, you'll find the link to the LAME MP3 encoder. Now when I click that, that only takes me to the FAQs about installation and plugins. But it jumps me down to the section of the page where I can find the Mac and Windows instructions. Now if for some reason it doesn't jump you to this part of the page, you can scroll back up to the top. And here find the entry of how do I download and install the LAME MP3 encoder. And underneath that you can jump to your operating system. So you can see there's the Mac section and there's the Windows section. And both of them include a link to the LAME download page. And just so you can quickly understand this, LAME is a free MP3 encoder that's been developed and used since the late 90s, and it integrates directly within Audacity. So again, since I'm on a Mac, I'm going to click the LAME download page link here. And actually, both the Windows and the Mac links go to the same page, but I'm just jumped to the Mac section here. If I scroll up, you can see here's the Windows section. But I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to click the installer for the Mac here. And once that's done, I can open up the disk image. Just close my browser now. And I'll double-click the installer to run through the installation steps. Now, I'm not going to change anything here. I'm just going to run through all the steps here. And it's done. So now when I go back to Audacity, I'll be able to export files as MP3s. All right, here on the Windows side of things, I've already downloaded the exe file to install the LAME plugin. So I'll double click that. I'll allow it to run. And just like on the Mac side, I'm just going to walk through this installation wizard. Now it's very important that you don't choose a different location to save the plugin in. If LAME doesn't get saved in the right place, you might not be able to export MP3s without manually searching for it in Audacity. So basically, just run the installer, but don't change any of the settings. I'll click Next and Install. And it's done. And just so you can see this, if I now open up Audacity, I can make a quick recording here. And we'll stop that. And now if I choose File, Export Audio, I'll choose my desktop. I'll just call this Test. And for the file type, I'll choose MP3. And I'll click Save. And as we saw earlier, you can also add metadata here if you want to. So if you're exporting music, you might put the artist name, the track title, and so on. I'll just leave that all blank and click OK. And just like that, there's my MP3. So we now have access to a free MP3 encoder in Audacity. And remember, you don't just have to use Audacity to work on your own recordings. You might download a recording or receive one from a friend that you want to convert to an MP3. And all you have to do once you have the encoder installed is to open the file and export it as an MP3. Now you might have noticed that the MP3 format does have some options. Let's make this a little bit bigger. We'll go to File, Export Audio again. So here you can see we have format options. And you can play around with things like the bitrate mode. Now the default settings here are actually pretty good for most projects. But you could choose something like the constant quality for the bitrate. Some people will bump that up to about 192 kilobits per second at its highest. Usually 128 is okay. Most people won't be able to tell the difference between that range anyway, but you can play around with the settings if you like. If you're interested in getting a little bit better quality out of your music file, you might choose the variable option, and then play around with the different quality settings here. This allows the encoder to use different bitrate settings for different sections of the music. More complicated sections might use a higher bitrate, and the less complicated sections might use a lower bitrate. Now, if you want to explore this sort of thing, it does get a little bit technical in terms of what these different options do, but you can read all about these settings in the Audacity manual. For now, I'll just leave the default settings, and I'll click Cancel. So that's how to download the LAME MP3 encoder and install it so you can export MP3s from Audacity.